Jupiter at night. Jupiter at night. We are live on the internet.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Jupiter at Night. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Hey there, J-Man.
Hi.
The internet went crazy over the weekend.
I know. We take a little break and the whole thing explodes.
You know, it's funny. With the exception of last on Sunday, I haven't done a show since Thursday.
I haven't done a show since Wednesday.
It feels like a really long time.
Yeah,
You know?
it is.
And the whole place went berserk.
Now, I got to say, it's been so long since I've seen you. Your beard is starting to look rather bushy.
Oh, yeah? You like that?
Yeah.
I was thinking about growing it out a little bit, yeah.
It's coming along.
The beard, though, you can measure the passage of time by the beard. That's how you can follow along what episode of the week it is.
Well, now we know that all of the hair on your body is just as reliable.
Yeah, that's true. It is sort of synchronized, I think. Now, going back to the internet went crazy. Starting this weekend, I started watching a few stories pop up that kind of were pretty surprising. It sounded like, and it turned out to be true, that the government was shutting down access via blocking at the DNS level of a lot of websites online.
Yeah.
Going on into Monday, and there was a Cyber Monday shutdowns and things like that. So that's pretty wild. That happens over the weekend, so bear with us, because today, on Tuesday...
That's today.
And actually, I started seeing some Twitter messages about this on Monday. Level 3 came out and said, hey, everyone, Comcast is being real mean. People just want to watch their Netflix, and so we're like, okay, well, we're the internet backbone people. We'll go from Netflix to you, and but then we wanted to give it to you on Comcast, but Comcast said we had to pay them. So we're good guys. We went ahead and paid them, but that sucks, huh?
Level 3, who like Chris said, they're the guys that handle the content for Netflix. They deliver it to us.
They do all kinds of internet delivery. They're like the ISP's ISP.
Right.
Well, that's kind of they're
very high.
If you're going to go from one region to another region, there's a good chance, especially if their services are in California, you're going to traverse across Level 3's network.
And or Comcast. But so that's getting into where it kind of sprung from. But Level 3 started coming out with kind of a press blitz, kind of a hype about like starting to use buzzwords like the big one, net neutrality, which is really what started catching, well, probably your attention. That's why you pointed me to this article.
Yeah, the net neutrality topic is a hot one, and the idea here that Comcast might be charging Level 3 a surcharge to carry streaming video content, that kind of starts smacking of a little net neutrality play there.
Well, it's pretty much directly in violation of what we assume is network neutrality.
Right, because what could happen...
The whole concept of premium services.
If Level 3 says, we can't afford or we're not going to pay that, then theoretically the ending result would be Comcast customers don't have access to Netflix.
Can I just cut to the chase here, though?
Yeah.
That's all a bunch of hooey.
Yeah.
Everything that Level 3 has been saying in the press is just blowing the whole thing out of proportion.
Now, this is interesting. Tell me about this.
Well, Level 3 basically, they came out and said, Comcast is the bad guy. They want to charge us.
Right.
Well, it didn't take a whole lot of sleuthing on the part of most of the news networks around there to figure out that Level 3 was violating a contract with Comcast.
Yeah, this was an agreement that they decided to go into that said something like, you know, when your bandwidth from a certain destination or source goes over a ratio, we're going to put a surcharge.
Right, or you have to sign a new contract, which will be a different service and it'll cost more.
And Level 3 didn't pay.
Right.
Now, we don't know what the conditions of that contract, if they were extraordinary, but it doesn't take too much kind of pondering to break down two really big, important aspects. Level 3 is an important internet backbone company.
If you're watching Netflix, you're getting it through Level 3 at some point.
It's a good chance if you're watching this, you are.
Yeah.
And then also Comcast, huge endpoint destination. They're the largest ISP inside the U.S. that downloads our content, for example, is Comcast. And then followed by, the other large ISPs that you would expect. But Comcast is huge in the States. And outside, we don't really know outside the States, we don't know what the ramifications are of these type of agreements if I would think even going, to other countries, you at some point
Canada,
would have to pull from Level 3, and if there's some sort of blocking that happens there, I don't know how that would affect them. But this whole idea really kind of smacks of maybe Level 3 is gasping for attention because, they're a small fry compared to the huge company that is Comcast.
Yeah, we looked it up, and I think they only have a couple thousand employees total. Yeah, like 5,000 or something?
Yeah. Level 3 has 5,000 employees as of 2009.
Comcast employees like
100,000. Yeah, 100,000 as of 2009. So quite a big differential there. Something like 55 billion annual profit versus $1 billion.
Now, again, I don't think that Level 3 is coming across correctly because they're painting Comcast as the bad guy.
But they signed the contract.
They signed a contract that they're not meeting. Not only that, but because they signed that contract for a cheaper service, that's how they sold themselves to Netflix. Because they offered similar services to what Netflix was shopping for a lower cost because they weren't paying Comcast enough.
Right.
So, I mean, if they have to start paying Comcast, are they going to lose Netflix's business? Are they just rattling their sabers trying to get public appeal behind them?
It sounds like negotiations aren't going their direction, and they want to get some public attention to sort of force Comcast in a certain direction because they don't have the power on their own to do it.
That's kind of what it comes across as. I don't like it, but the bigger issues here are the fact that these contracts, really, that they exist at all.
You know,
I mean,
that is sort of the big red flag of this whole news story is, wait a minute here. I didn't know we had all these agreements in the first place. Are you telling me that all this delivery, we're not currently experiencing net neutrality, what we actually have now are just agreements and arrangements that everyone's playing nice and so we're getting our content?
When you sign up for an internet service provider, you're paying your service provider to provide you
way too much, by the way.
Internet.
I'm paying them a lot.
Yeah, you are.
All that other crap does not seem like my problem.
Right.
I'm paying my $100 a month or whatever I pay.
If you were paying Comcast, let's
80,
say, as your ISP, I don't even know if you can anymore. I think it's Xfinity everywhere. Anyway.
No, it's still Comcast.
If you are buying your internet, if you're paying Comcast to be your internet service provider, and all of a sudden they say, okay, you get the whole internet except Netflix. What are you paying them for? You're not paying for the internet. You're paying for the Comcast
That happens
network.
on TV. That happened with my, I had Dish Network, and my local ABC affiliate got in a dispute with Dish Network, and for like months, I didn't have Channel 4.
2.5 months, I think.
It was awful, and I'm just, okay, and they took $1 off my bill or something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe Comcast would do something similar like that, but...
the problem here, though, is that even if that happened and you find out, okay, I'm just going to live with that. Comcast can have their Netflix free internet. I'm going to go somewhere that has Netflix.
Yeah,
you can't.
Yeah,
there's no other option. In the U.S., we have a very substantial lack of competition in the ISP market.
Generally, at best, we have a duopoly with two companies.
Yeah,
like here we have Verizon, which is now owned by Frontier, and we have Comcast. And in some locations, you can have both. In some locations, you can only have one or the other.
And sometimes it comes down to having to choose whether you want cable internet with this provider or DSL internet with a different provider.
Right.
Which are also different service speeds, everything.
Different quality levels. Yeah, so I guess the question becomes, is this now going to be the catalyst that brings the FCC and the federal regulators in and is going to start laying down some of these laws that are going to mandate some sort of general public access laws?
I really hope so, because just like you said earlier, the fact that this story kind of brings to light the fact that we don't currently have a situation where net neutrality exists.
Right.
All we have is a whole bunch of high-level contracts of big corporate entities that have decided to play nice together as long as they continue to grease each other's palms.
Yeah, as long as they're paying up that special price, yeah.
So we as end users get net neutrality only because the proper money is being passed through the proper channels.
But it really is in their best interest to keep behaving on their own and not have the government step in.
Right.
I mean,
or
really,
to cut off services to the other providers in order to rattle their sabers and get them to pay more money for it.
I almost wonder if it needs to be more monopoly busting in this case and less rate. I guess you still are going to need some.
You're going to need a little bit of both, and I think over the long term,
you will.
It'll come down to massive regulation, but over the short term, I think that you have to do is just take some major steps to show that you're working towards a goal. As a regulatory agency, FCA.
I touched on the topic of some of the
FCC. Sorry,
some of the websites that were getting pulled offline over the weekend. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to save it? You want to go into it?
Yeah, okay. I think so, because this is actually, if you think about it, out the other side of what I was just.
That's kind of what made me think about it. That's exactly what made me think about it. So over the weekend, you started seeing. I think TorrentFreak broke the story, right? The initial story about some of the torrent trackers being blocked via DNS, and the initial reports were around the world. The ICANN level DNS servers were completely pointed to a website that just said this has been shut down by ICE, the Immigration Services Agency. And
can we sidebar for just a second?
Yeah.
Because why are websites being shut down by the Immigration?
I don't know the logic there either.
And Customs Enforcement Agency.
Immigration's Custom Enforcement is shutting down websites. Based
in the U.S., by the way.
Okay.
So I don't really know. And the more that I looked, I actually did a lot of digging into this with the chat room earlier. There's a couple guys that frequent our chat room that are like really smart. And they were able to dig into like the IP registrations and things like that. And all these seem to have come from GoDaddy, which is the world's largest domain registrar. So it stands. I only know that from watching Last, by the way. It stands to reason that if they were seeking to nail as many sites as possible, they'd go to them.
Well, so GoDaddy made a public statement saying, "Hey, look, they didn't come to us. They went to." So GoDaddy has to go to an upper governing organization that manages domain names. When you buy from GoDaddy, they're just a reseller. Yeah, many other companies, and GoDaddy's public statement says that it happened at this level, and that makes sense because I believe this is controlled at some level by the federal government. So that would be they already have an involvement at that level. So they have essentially an open door where they can get in there. They have shut down sites in the past, but this massive something like 88 sites were shut down. And then on Cyber Monday, a bunch of other sites were shut down that turned out to be fraudulent sites like rip-off DVDs
counterfeit
and
merchandise and
copyright and crap like that.
Which is actually, Rikai is pointing out, that's why it falls under the jurisdiction of the ICE, is because of the counterfeit goods being imported. And so that makes sense. Thank you, Rikai.
I still don't quite get how they are responsible unless
on the internet?
If they're arguing that like the torrent sites, maybe the pirating was done out of the country.
That's actually one of the big points that TorrentFreak, and I'll be honest, TorrentFreak is a bit biased in most of their reporting. They can get a little alarmist, so I don't...
VeriSign. They went to VeriSign.
Okay.
So GoDaddy's a VeriSign reseller. I didn't... Okay. I see.
Well, and so...
Or something like that.
But the main point that TorrentFreak was making in their article was that, yeah, it's cool they shut down all these other illicit sites and everything, but one of them listed on there was a torrent searching site. They don't even host their own torrents. They don't even host tracking services.
You could, if you knew how to craft a good Google query, you could do... People do torrent searching via Google.
Yeah, you could. So what caused them to choose that site to shut down?
Yeah.
And why only that site? It was not ISOHunt. It was called torrentfinder.com. Which, by the way, another sidebar here, all of these sites that they shut down, all they did was seize their domains.
Right. So just a point of clarification so that way I don't get a ton of comments. VeriSign is responsible for .com and .nets. ICANN runs the .root domain. So that kind of when they went and if they shut down .coms and .nets, they were going to VeriSign. So the federal government went directly to VeriSign above GoDaddy and shut them down. Now, when they've done this, what I think you're kind of alluding to is what they have chosen to shut down versus what they actually shut down seems really bizarre. Like if they're going to spend their time censoring websites and shutting them down, why aren't they going after child pornography or some sort of terrorism website or something like that?
WikiLeaks.
Or even WikiLeaks.
They've had such
shut them up.
Huge legal disturbances with WikiLeaks.
If there's such a disturbance, shut them down. Right. Not that I want them to, but let's just say, and people have copies. Let's be honest, they're not the same source. So this has led to a very ingenious solution. Now, if you're still with us, you're in for a treat because what this has kind of inspired.
I don't know if this is much of a treat. It's interesting.
It's very interesting. And I just love the rogue spirit of the internet.
Yeah.
It is a peer-to-peer DNS name resolution system. The idea being, I don't know, maybe some sort of agent or something like that. They're talking about a P2P. And you would register yourself. You could just register up in there because .p2p would be peer shared.
Jeremy.peer-to-peer.
You would just register it right indirectly.
Right.
And then that would I would understand, from my understanding, would populate throughout the peer database.
Anybody connected to that network would then help host your DNS.
And you wouldn't have to fundamentally change DNS. Your computer could still be pointing at a DNS server. Maybe that DNS server on your network queries the peer network.
Oh.
So maybe you could integrate it right in with your existing DNS infrastructure for networks and stuff like that. And the idea is that there's not one central place to go to shut it down. That you can just, it's on a peer network.
Yeah.
And now that is a really interesting
now, the
solution
reason that
to
this has kind of given the finger to the government means that if any site was hosted on that new peer-to-peer network, they would have no No way. Not just no jurisdiction.
There'd be no way.
But there would be no way to shut a website
And it
off
also means people
without shutting the entire peer-to-peer DNS network
right,
off.
and it means that people outside the U.S. wouldn't be. So when we shut down these sites, if you're coming into the U.S. server, you get to the U.S. and you can't they forward the name query and it doesn't resolve because they've blocked it. You're also screwed, and you could fire up this peer-to-peer DNS system and get around some of these blockings. And you got to wonder if maybe some of the other censoring that goes on online could be fixed by this kind of system. It's really interesting. They're not talking about replacing .com and .net.
I have to figure that it'd probably be pretty slow when you're relying on peer-to-peer networks.
Maybe, yeah. Unless there's tricks though. There's caching and there's all kinds of tricks. You never know.
Sure.
People get.
I don't know. I don't do that kind of peer-to-peer stuff.
No, never. Although if you wanted to throw this show up on a peer-to-peer site,
we wouldn't fight you.
Send a link out, let people know about it because we're trying to spread the word about Jupiter at Night.
One last final note before we sign off here. Though, right. I just received a link. Actually, just received it in the
just came in from the chat room, Jeremy.
I'm not going to have time to read this, but I will tell you the title says ICANN, which is the agency we were just talking about, had no role in seizing these torrent domains. So I will include this link in our show notes if you want to read more info.
What the heck is going on? Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, okay, I'm definitely going to read that. All right, let's wrap this thing up so I can read that.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for joining us in tonight's episode of Jupiter at Night.
What?
What?
We
got to remember to plug this at the top of tomorrow's show because NASA has made a very teasalicious announcement.
I don't know how I forgot about this.
Regarding the future of discovery of extraterrestrial life forever.
I like that you added forever. That was good.
Well, it is.
I didn't know where you were going, but yeah.
That's huge.
And that announcement will be made on Thursday morning or afternoon
before
our Thursday show. So I can already guarantee that we're going to talk about it.
That's not even, I'm not even
exaggerating. Why it's a huge disappointment or why it's the most awesome thing ever.
That is actually what they said.
Yeah.
That's actually what they said. I cannot wait to talk about it. Who knows what it's going to be, but we'll know by Thursday.
That'll be Thursday's show.
There you have it. And then tomorrow night, well, we got something else planned. We'll save it for tomorrow night. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.